What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to BridgingTheGeekdoms. I'm Robert Slavinsky. This is my review for The Suicide Squad, so check it out now. Suicide Squad came out this past week, and yeah, it's got a lot of mixed reactions when it comes to fans. Now, we know that the reviews, the scores, all that from the critics' side have all been very, very good. People have liked it on that side of the spectrum, but when you take a look at what the fans are enjoying, it's pretty split down the middle. It's either you love it or you hate it, and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Now, we do know all of the crap that went on leading up to James Gunn becoming the director-writer of the Suicide Squad. They wanted to take these characters, the DC universe, in a different direction, and they went to James Gunn and they said, hey, we want you to do Superman, or you have the pickings of whatever you want to do. He didn't want to do Superman, but he wanted to tackle the Suicide Squad. And a lot of people thought that that was a little on the nose because it's very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. I, on the other hand, years ago when they announced this, thought it was a brilliant idea. From the moment that Disney and Marvel Studios let James Gunn go, I said, DC, Warner Brothers, get on that, get James Gunn, and have him do a Suicide Squad. Because I thought back then that that was the best idea for that kind of the Suicide Squad. That's what I thought. I thought it was a good idea for the Suicide Squad. But here we are, and we see all the mixed reactions, all the negative reviews, and everything like that. And it's just kind of, I sit there and I just go, really? So, let us take a look at the Suicide Squad. It follows a group of villains on doing missions for Argus, and they are known as Task Force X. They're villains. They get these little things, shots in the back of their head with little bombs, essentially, put into the back of their heads. Amanda Waller, who's in charge of this, basically will flip a switch or click a switch and blow off their heads if they do not follow through with the mission and go against what they have agreed on. So that is essentially what the whole backstory of Suicide Squad is and who Task Force X is. And we've known that, and we discovered that and learned that in the first Suicide Squad film by David Ayer back in 2016. But here we sit, 2021, and they touch on that aspect a little bit in the movie, but they really don't dive into it. I felt that they kind of relied too much on the knowledge of the previous movie for that, but let's keep going here. So Amanda Waller, she gets a whole bunch of these villains, and it recruits them to go to Corto Maltese, and there they need to stop or destroy records that the U.S. government was involved with experimenting on humans with a space creature of sorts. And spoilers, if you have seen, or if you haven't seen the movie, this is definitely spoilers moving forward, so please click off now. But that being from outer space is Starro the Conqueror, and we know from comic Starro the Conqueror was a pretty interesting and bizarre villain from the comics. I was interested to see how they were going to utilize him in this movie, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But that is the main premise, is sending Task Force X to go to Corto Maltese to destroy this laboratory that holds information that the U.S. government was involved with experimenting on humans with this Starro, or Project Starfish. That does not get revealed until much later in the movie. The whole time it's just like, hey, this is an important mission. We need to go. Don't ask questions. Just go do your mission. Don't ask questions. Just do your mission. It just got a little old after a while. But let's move past that. Let's talk about the good, because there was a lot about this movie I really enjoyed, despite what everybody was saying. I went into this movie with pretty low expectations. If you saw me over my TikTok, I was not too impressed with the last couple trailers and felt that it was just going to be rehashing a lot of what the first movie was. So let's talk about the good first. Casting. I gotta say, the casting was spot on. Dave Dastmalchian, Idris Elba, who else was there? Sylvester Stallone as King Shark I thought was great. And I mean, John Cena as Peacemaker, fantastic casting. So yeah, I do like the casting. I thought they did a really good job in getting these characters and bringing them to life. We also have so many other Suicide Squad members that were in the beginning of this movie that I thought were going to play out to be really interesting characters because I liked the actors and I thought, okay, this could be interesting, such as, Michael Rooker and I can't remember his name. The guy who was playing Javelin. I can't remember his name, but there's so many good actors and portrayals that they had. I thought that was a plus for this movie. The action was not bad. I actually enjoyed some of the action set pieces. I think it could have been a little more. I felt that they relied too heavily on the big explosions and such, but when you have Starro the Conqueror, you have Starro walking around a city, it makes sense that there's going to be these big explosions, buildings falling and everything. But for the most part, the action, James Gunn has a way of making these action sequences fun. We know that it's a dire situation, but they're still just fun. My favorite action sequence, I think, was when Harley Quinn, Polka Dot Man, and Bloodsport are in a building, the building, and they're like top floor, and it starts to collapse. And that whole sequence that goes on there, I thought was fantastic. It wasn't like I was on the edge of my seat, but I really enjoyed it because I felt they did a good job in expressing the fear, the angst, and then the comedy behind some of it. I really enjoyed that. And I can't sit there and say that every single piece of action in this movie was amazing, but that was actually a lot of fun. The movie's edited. When you compare it to the first Suicide Squad in 2016, this movie is edited far better than that movie was, but we know what happened back in 2016. We understand how Warner Brothers meddled and re-edited, and it just became the hodgepodge mess that it is. This movie is not like that. This movie, the pace is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's perfect. There's moments where it's just kind of a little slow. There's a couple moments where I sat there like, could have cut that out. But for the most part, it's edited really well, and it flows. It does flow. There's reasons for it. But again, I think they could have cut out maybe about 15, 20 minutes of the movie, had it pace a little bit quicker. And a lot of that 15, 20 minutes is just stuff that we didn't need at all. It had me chuckling a few times. I got to admit, I enjoyed the humor. I'm a James Gunn fan. I've never said I wasn't. I've never hidden that fact. I do like James Gunn. The first Guardians of the Galaxy movie is number 1 or number 2 in my book when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is a fantastic space adventure, and the comedy, the writing, the story, everything about that movie I think is just top notch. The second one I don't think was as good, but I'm not going to sit there and say it's complete shit. It is lower on the list in the Marvel movie aspect for me, but when it comes to James Gunn, I enjoy his films. I enjoy his raw comedy, and I knew he was going to be let loose here. I knew he was given the ability to let loose, and I'm not going to say that every joke was perfect and every moment of comedy was gold. I'm not going to say that, but it was enjoyable. I got some chuckles, and that is more than what I could have asked for. And again, I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. This does connect with the first one. People may not realize it, but there are some connections that happen within this film that do connect with the first one. Harley talking about, being back, and, Boomerang at one time, Captain Boomerang's like, oh, why you locked up again? And again, you see they have a relationship, and it's alluding to the fact that there is a first one, that there was another adventure that some of these characters went on. And I like that. But there wasn't enough to dive into that. And we're actually get into that in the bad here in a second, because There is an aspect I think that they should have explored further, and they didn't. I don't know why. Now, the bad. Let's get into the bad. The random and unnecessary scenes with a dong, a penis. Yes, I'll say it. There's a random scene where a penis is there and a random part with titties. Look, I get it. That's James Gunn. That's his humor. That's his style. It just made no sense. There was no reason to show it. It doesn't add to the story. It doesn't add to the weight. It was more, especially the penis, was more for shock value. It was more like, oh, look, there's a floppy dick right there, as opposed to just shooting the guy with underwear on. There was no reason for it because it brought nothing to the film at all. And that's just, again, if you know James Gunn, you understand how he is. That is his type of comedy. Killing off of so many characters, especially early on. Here's the thing. The movie doesn't help establish the larger DC universe. It just doesn't, especially for TVs, movies, whatever they're doing. The whole fact that, what was it, half of the characters that you teased and were showing us in all the trailers and marketing, showing us that all those characters, and then half of them dying within the first 5 minutes, did kind of two things. It kind of was a slap in the face to a lot of the people excited to see this movie, to see these characters live on big screen. And to finally, like Captain Boomerang, I wanted to see so much of him because I felt he was a bit of a letdown in the first Suicide Squad. So I was hoping to see more of him, but he was killed off in the first 15 minutes. It was kind of just ridiculous. Again, a slap in the face to the fans who are excited to see these characters come to life or actually get their due. You then have to look at the grand scheme of things, and taking a look at Captain Boomerang, for instance, he is a Flash rogue. He's a Flash villain. Right now, the Flash movie's just getting started. The Flash lore and film is just getting started. And he's not going to have... And he's not going to have one of his biggest and most noticeable and noted villains, rogues, to fight because you decided to kill him off in a Suicide Squad movie where he only gets about a minute and a half of screen time. That is my problem with it. I get that he was trying to look at the whole Suicide Squad aspect. Like, look, these guys are going on a mission that's dangerous. They're going to die. I get that, and I agree completely. But you don't market it like all these characters are going to be in it, and then you kill them all in 15 minutes. If you would have spread it out and given us some time over the course of the 2 hours of the movie with these characters to at least have a chance to see them come to life, I could forgive you. But the fact that you were so quick to kill off these characters like that and give us nothing with all the hype that was surrounding it with the marketing. I remember the DC Fandom event last year. They were so excited, all these people on screen talking about things, and it just, why? Why were they even marketing it? Most of these characters probably went in for 6 hours of shooting, a shooting day, and left. They had nothing to do with the movie, essentially. So that, to me, was a little bit of a letdown, and I think that they probably could have and should have handled that better. There was no real villain in this movie either. We know that they had to go destroy the facility, essentially to help save the U.S. government's ass from information getting out. Just so happens that Starro is there, and they do have to fight Starro in the last 10 minutes of the movie. But for the most part, there's no villain. For an hour and, 45 minutes, there's really no villain that is even known to be a villain. Oh, they're like, we got a mission, we got to go do this. So there was nothing to root against. There was nothing to get excited about these characters going in and doing anything. When we're finally introduced to the Thinker, who was vastly underutilized. The Thinker could be an amazing villain for any of these movies in the DC universe. It's so underutilized and then killed off yet again. And again, you're just not, you don't feel like there's any real danger to these characters in any way, shape, or form. And then when they're killed off, you're just like, oh, okay, like there was no suspense built up. That makes sense. I know I said I liked the comedy. I did like some of the comedy, but there were a lot of forced jokes as well. There was a lot of jokes. That John Cena line, oh, starfish is, slang for butthole. Is that have anything? Again, it's James Gunn. It's his type of comedy. I get it. I understand. To me, didn't land. There's a lot of those throughout the movie. But again, there were still moments of comedy that I enjoyed. Just some of them I felt were a little forced. And it relied too much on having knowledge of the first Suicide Squad movie. The reason I say that is because the way that they dive in and explain what Task Force X is, who the Suicide Squad is, who Amanda Waller is, that's all kind of glanced over very quickly. Not saying I don't understand. I've seen the first Suicide Squad. I've read the comics. I'm versed in this stuff. But the general audience, they're not going to quite understand. Not saying that it's going to completely ruin the excitement and enjoyment of the movie. I just think that there's people that want a little more explanation on what the hell is going on. Why is Harley Quinn there? Who is Bloodsport? Who is this? Who is that? And why are they in prison? And why is this prison taking these people and just throwing them on a team and to go do? That was all explained in the first Suicide Squad. Not so much so. Very little, very briefly in this movie. So again, I think it relies too much on that first movie and explaining what Task Force X is. Overall, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Was it a masterpiece? No. Was it better than 2016's Suicide Squad? Yeah, I would say it's gonna be, and it definitely is. Is this the direction I want to see the DC Universe go? Or the DCEU go? I wouldn't mind if we had a movie like this every once in a while. Again, it's okay to like this stuff. If you're a Snyder fan, it's okay to like the other DC things. It's okay to get excited about this kind of stuff that's just slightly different. Believe it or not, this is technically connected to the Snyderverse. It's utilizing the same Harley Quinn, Harleen Quinzel. It's her. It's the same one from Suicide Squad. The same one from Birds of Prey. The same one that Batman talks about with the Joker in the nightmare scene at the end of the Snyder Cut. This movie is not bad. It's not as great as some of the critics were making it out to be. I think it was just because there's not been a lot that critics were kind of like, oh man, this is amazing, because we haven't had a lot. But it's still a fun movie. It's not amazing. It's not Citizen Kane. It's not Man of Steel. But it's better than the original Suicide Squad for sure. Definitely better than that. It's definitely interesting to see where they take this. The Peacemaker side of it. I know a lot of people were sitting there loving Peacemaker, and they love Bloodsport. The characterizations are great, and that's what you need to see. You want to see great characterizations because you want to see these characters continue in some form or fashion down the line, and we're getting that with the Peacemaker series coming up, which I'm not over the moon about. I'm not, oh, we can't wait to see it, but I'm going to watch it because I'm interested to see this character and see this world build. And that's kind of what I want to see. Yeah, there's a lot of missed opportunities with this movie. There's a lot of areas where I think that they shouldn't have killed so many characters off. They should not have done that. I would have loved to have seen more Polka Dot Man in the future. He had an interesting backstory that I think would have been really neat and interesting to explore. I personally would like to see a lot more when it comes to a lot of those characters. Honestly, Boomerang, again, Captain Boomerang. Being such a big Flash fan, it's just so disappointing to see one of his coolest and most interesting, in my opinion, villains just thrown away like he was. Rick Flag, again, another one that should be getting a lot more, and just I thought he had more to give in the franchise, and they killed him off. And again, I believe in the comics they killed him off relatively quickly, at least originally. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but I would like to see more from him as well. I just think that with killing all these characters, they just don't understand what the DCEU is going to be moving forward, and it kind of handcuffs creative minds moving forward. was talking to a friend of mine. He says, yeah, but it doesn't really matter because we got the Flash movie coming out, which is going to be kind of like a Flashpoint and everything. So what the hell's the point of releasing this movie then? You see what I mean? It's if we're going to sit back and say, oh, anything that comes out before the Flash movie, hey, if somebody dies, who the hell cares? Because we got Flash movie, and anything can be anything at that point. I get it's a redo card that they have there, but there has to be some finality. There has to be some circumstances and that just don't change because of the Flash. But let me know your thoughts, guys. I want to know what you thought of the Suicide Squad. I'm probably should not be asking this. I should not be, because I can see this exploding, but I do want to know what you thought of the Suicide Squad. Again, I enjoyed it enough. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, but I did enjoy it, believe it or not. But leave your comment below what you thought, what you didn't like, what you would have liked to have seen, and what you hope happens in the future with James Gunn, because he says he's got some more in the pipeline with DC and Warner Brothers, so it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But with all that said, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I will talk at all of you later. What's going on, guys? Did you enjoy this video? If you did, make sure you smash that like button. And for more, hit subscribe with that little notification bell. That way, you'll be notified every time a new episode drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.